hanging out. First night on a new browser. I don't know what's going on, so we're going to see how it goes. But welcome in. We're live right now tonight on TikTok, Facebook. We're live, Dogs Down South on YouTube. And then, yeah, man, I don't know if even my intro video worked or whatnot. So who knows? Maybe it did. We'll go back, check it out. So everybody joining tonight is going to be a little bit of an experiment. But thanks for joining. I'll drop this down, check in over here, see what's going on. Got a live chat over here. So if you're new to this, we are live pretty much once a week. Dogs Down South, we do a live show where we talk all things Georgia football. And then 24 hours later, we are on Apple Podcasts. If you hop over there on Apple Podcasts, you will catch us over there under Dogs Down South, and 73 or so episodes over there. Got a live version over there from 2 weeks ago where we talked a lot about Jared Curtis. We talked about post spring. We talked about outlook for a lot of our incoming NIL players. Transfer portal stuff was coming to a close. We kind of capped that off. So, yeah. So we're going to hop right in. TikTok users, if you are hopping in right now, make sure you jump in, share the live stream, share the live for me, and continue to hit those hearts. We want to get to the top of all these lists. So let's hop right in. I'm gonna post a few hot topic questions, and I'm gonna slap them up here for some of my viewers. But so here's a question for you right now, right out of the gates. So as we know, right after Jared Curtis committed at Georgia, a lot was talked about with Tyler Cantwell. So Cantwell was big 6'8", 300 plus tackle. I think it's from around the Missouri area. Big, a lot of hype. Number one, I think, overall player coming out of next year's recruiting class. And it was down to, from what I understand, there was a lot of players involved. I think the big two were Georgia, Miami. I don't know. I mean, he came along the way about 2-3 weeks ago once Jared Curtis reopened his recruitment. But before that, I know Alabama was in the mix. Ohio State was in the mix. There was a few other schools in the mix, but he narrowed it down to Georgia and Miami. Now, here's the catcher, right? Mario Cristobal, Miami. Obviously, we know, and we're going to talk. We got a couple of hot topic things that involve Miami tonight, but we know that Carson Beck headed down to Miami, and for whatever reason, I don't know if that was all him. I don't know if that was Georgia going, this relationship is not really healthy anymore. Did the injury come into play? I mean, we really don't know, for a lack of better words, what that looked like, right? So at the end of the day, Beck goes to Miami, and now you're looking at Cantwell. And then you've seen Miami go out and do what they do. I feel like this is a stab for Miami because you've seen them more active in the portal, and you've seen them, I feel like, with, as far as recruits, I don't feel like they've done a great job to get themselves in the top, 8 to 10 in the recruiting ranks. And so this kind of jumps out to me as a ploy to go, hey, like, we are live and active, in the recruiting ranks, and we're not just, I guess you would say, portal human beings. But here's the thing. So Tyler Cantwell goes to Miami, right? I'm hearing that the NIL deal was amongst somewhere up in the $2 million rankings, which is a good percentage of their entire NIL budget, right? And so the biggest thing my biggest question for everyone is do we think that Miami overpaid for Tyler Cantwell? Now we all know we talked about NIL last week. We talked about the where it's going, possibly house settlements, agreements that are coming down the way, and what's going to fix NIL. And we talked about Nico Iamaleava going to UCLA. We talked about um, we're going to talk a little bit about Justice Terry here in a little while as well. But you know, with that kind of, I mean, it's a tackle, right? And I know that you know tackles can be game changers in your day-to-day game. Maybe a lockdown cornerback, the right linebacker, receiver. I mean, you look at skill players and things of that nature, but you look at a lot of the questions that's being asked around national media outlets is what was too much for Tyler Cantwell, and $2 million might have been too much for Georgia. As we all know, and we'll talk about soon, Georgia is a team that tends to try to use their collective very well. They try to promise a lot of things that are down the way. They try to get you into the habits of going, hey, look, we want you. But if you come in and you do what you need to do and you put up the numbers that we think you're going to put up, and you're invested in the system, you're invested in what has made Georgia so credible in the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years, the money's going to be there. But not only is the money's going to be there, but your draft stock. And I'll be honest, like, I think there's a lot of players that have been drafted from Georgia in the last 2 years, a little early or even a little late, that possibly could have only been drafted in those spots because they're from Georgia, right? So, at the end of the day, I, I don't know. I mean, I think the Georgia good, great name is going to get you. I mean, I can't really associate back to Ohio State or Alabama because, I mean, more so Alabama because, I mean, NIL's, I think, 2 or 3 years, and Georgia's been in the NIL era heavily the last 2 or 3 years, and they've competed for national championships, won SEC championships. So you can't really look at how that affects Georgia in or out of the NIL era. Maybe Alabama a little bit, but I can tell you that the talk around the NFL camps are that Georgia players are NFL ready. They're NFL practice ready. Their mentality is that they are ready to come in and start and be a substantial deal for any team that brings them on. But I think personally, if I'm looking at this and I look at Miami, I think this was a huge reach. Can Tyler Cantwell come in and play first year and make an impact for $2 million? Maybe at Miami, and maybe that was the big thing. Maybe he wanted money. On top of that, he wanted, you know, he wanted to start. Maybe they guaranteed him a better opportunity to start, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, I just think this was a reach. This just goes to show, where we're at with Miami. I mean, is Miami trying to do everything it possibly can to be relevant? A lot of people say that this team this year is going to be different. Um, I gotta see it, man. I don't know. I mean, to me, Mario Cristobal's teams have just never finished the deal per se. I mean, when he was at Oregon, when he was a part of Alabama, of course, his teams finished because he was there with Nick Saban. But I don't know. I just feel like that Mario Cristobal is just not a person that is not a guy right now that just because he goes out and spends $2 million on Tyler Cantwell, uh, that's a reach. And you're spending a good amount of your budget where possibly 3 or 4 players could have come in to help the organization and play maybe immediately. And maybe they got big money like that. I don't know exactly what their entire budget looks like, but I can tell you that they're not spending $40 million like like the Texases and like the LSU's have this year. I know I mentioned it a couple weeks back that crazily enough, there's a over $40 million payroll budget out there for Texas, and I can tell you that LSU was a shocker that has spent more on their budget. So yeah, I think that was a huge reach for Miami. So let's hide this down. Next hot topic coming in. We were on the topic of Carson Beck, and a lot of Georgia fans want to know, like, you know, what gives us a little bit of closure with Gunner this year? Like, what gets us to the point where we feel very comfortable coming into the season that Gunner's the guy? And a lot of us, I'm starting to see Georgia fans come around and not really hunt this topic down and beat it up and debate it. Although it'll be beat up, it'll be beat up and debated. Uh, you know, as we enter in the first 2, 3, 4 games and we see the offense, and is Bobo's head going to the chopping block? Is it Gunner's fault? Whose fault is it? Our wide receivers won't catch the ball. We can't block. We can't run the ball. Like, you would hope none of those things are going to come our way, but one or two are going to come our way in some capacity off the bat that maybe we'll have the opportunity to fix throughout the year. But what does Gunner bring that Beck did not? Because we just got off the topic of $4 million in some way, shape, or form that Carson Beck went to Miami. Um, Different scenario. We really don't know if Carson is going to be. I mean, we saw the head games he played last year with social media and his tough games as a Georgia quarterback, and the support he had by his then girlfriend, one of the Cavenders, I think it was Hannah Cavender, I think was her name. The huge support that she stepped out and gave him, and all these things. But now you're kind of in that limbo, that social media limbo, because what that I know of, like, you kind of feel like he's down there by himself, right? I know he's got, his family kind of wanted him to stay at Georgia. So it leads me to believe that maybe some of that was a little bit mixed. Maybe he wanted to go. Maybe the money was right. Maybe the family didn't worry about the money. Maybe he was following the girlfriend. Whatever it was, here's the thing that I'm going to shove back on with this. So Gunner is going to bring a lot of different things that Beck didn't. Okay, so let's list a few of these things real quick for our listeners. And if you haven't done so, if you're hearing me right now on TikTok Live, you can hit those hearts. Make sure you go follow and share the live stream. We don't only talk Georgia football. We do fly some SEC here in a little bit. I'm sorry, we do fly some SEC when we get a chance. Talk about the SEC in a fair manner. We're not going to sit here and we're just going to call it and opinionate it how we see it. We normally have a couple of co-hosts that hop on with me for our weekly podcast. But make sure you're following, liking, sharing the live stream, hitting those hearts. So Gunner number one, I'll tell you what Gunner brings. He brings a moxie to this team. I feel like Gunner, when you look at what his ability is to do, first off, that's not the thing that stares you down when he comes out of the gates. What stares me down is the fact that if you go back to the SEC championship when Gunner entered into the game, there was a little bit of a shift in the air. There was a shift in the players supporting Gunner. You felt a little bit of a push to want to play harder. You felt like the team was just going a little harder. I felt like some of our run blocking and pass blocking was different than it was all year. What is that from? I don't know. You call it as you see it. I will tell you that Gunner Stockton, he stays. I mean, he rooms with 3 or 4 Georgia players. Carson Beck, he was a loner. He was a guy that I don't say that easily. I mean, he was a guy that he stayed by himself. He had his own place, stayed to himself. Gunner's a guy that's been hanging out and throwing with the team. There's plans to take a few trips, do some throwing sessions and hang sessions with the offense for Gunner over the summer. I'm hearing about, but Beck just didn't do that. When practice was over, he was out of there. He had a schedule and agenda, and it was girlfriend and family, and those things are all important. And I get it; you're human, and they're students, but you have the feeling that there was not much rapport that went on with the team and Carson, and you started to sense that. I know the infamous pan over to the sideline after a couple of interceptions throughout the year, and it would catch smirks or a person that didn't really look like it mattered to him much. It's different for Gunner. Gunner is a hometown boy. I mean, he grew up in Georgia, heavily recruited by Mike Bobo. He actually, when Mike Bobo was the offensive coordinator at South Carolina, when Will Muschamp was there, Mike Bobo heavily recruited Gunner Stockton, and Gunner Stockton actually decommitted from South Carolina once Bobo left South Carolina. Was a big decision on why Gunner wanted to come to Georgia. He is a dude. Gunner's a dude. So right off the bat, you already get a little bit more team moxie, a little team camaraderie with him, a little bit more of a rah-rah guy. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Stetson, but maybe even, you look at Stetson and you go, man, I mean, Stetson didn't come off to me as a guy who was, on the field, on Fridays and Saturdays in the off season, Sundays, he might be out hunting with 3 or 4 guys or teaching a few guys how to fish and hang with them and talking about life. Beck didn't come off like a guy that that happened with. Another thing I think you're going to get, I mean, and don't get me wrong, we can flip the track. There's an NFL arm there with Beck, but we don't really know that. I think there has been some videos that have surfaced that have talked about, how Beck has thrown. I've seen a couple here and there on TikTok, but nothing really major. Like, I haven't seen any live route throwing, things of that nature, him moving in the pocket, throwing the ball. And I don't know if we will see that. Who knows? I mean, I do think this offseason and then getting into fall, it'll be a big story around that area is who's going to catch, Carson Beck throwing the football live, and, what's he going to look like for that first game out of the box this year, and all those things. But I think he has an NFL arm, but I don't know what that arm looks like post surgery that he got on that arm. So that'll be something to think about. He had an NFL arm, and now what does it look like now? Is it recovered? Is it still in that shape? And I think Gunner showed the ability to throw the ball, the deep ball, and had a lot of improvements throwing the football in the spring. And so excited about that. So I think there's a win there for Georgia in the area of just culture and just team camaraderie and just a quarterback that this team wants to play for. The other thing I think that gives Gunner a little bit of an upper hand, even though we always talk about how Beck waited his turn, I think you look at Gunner and, 3 years in this system. And, one thing that I will always tell you is that, it pays for a player in Georgia's system to run the practice team. Georgia, as like every school, they depend a lot on the practice team to give great looks day in, day out, week in, week out. And Gunner, at times, I used to hear a lot of players in interviews and things of that nature talk about how good Gunner Stockton was in some of those scenarios and how real those scenarios were as far as how he would emulate whether they were playing against a Bryce Young or or you name it, any quarterback in that era that they played against. He just did a great job, and Stetson did a great job too. There's a storyline that follows some of these quarterbacks that have been successful the past 5, 6, 7 years in Georgia football. A lot of them have had great scout team work, and so that is definitely something that Beck didn't give us, because Beck sat 1 year. He was the guy the following, and I mean, I don't think I looked at Carson like I'm looking at Gunner. Carson definitely was okay. We got the stats to back it up. We have been in the process to back it up. We have he's a dog. We had all these things, and I think I can speak for everybody until we had Lamborghinis and content creator girlfriends and things, all those things. We had these things until we had those things. And so I just think that's another thing that Gunner brings, is stability in the fact that he's not only a dog in the sense of the DNA of what he's done since he stepped on the campus at UGA, but he's gone through the process. He's ran the scout team. He's sat there. He's worked with Bobo. He's very, very close to Mike Bobo. Bobo, like I told you, recruited him a lot at South Carolina. He's the main reason that Gunner is at Georgia right now. give you another thing I think that Gunnar brings that Beck did not is, even though I know we looked at times where Beck could bail himself out from running the football. I'm sorry, from pass breakdowns or line breakdowns, and he could run the football. I think Gunnar gives a little bit more of natural born speed is the best way to say it. I think it give us a little bit more elusiveness at the quarterback position. It give us maybe some predetermined runs. I think it gives us the ability to be a little bit more open in the playbook. And I think we still threw the deep ball very well in the spring. And so those were some things that Carson brought to us. But if you can, I mean, to each their own, but if you can look at the wide receiver room that's been built for Gunnar, I beg to differ with the fair shake is that I don't feel like Carson Beck was rewarded a lot last year with people who could catch the deep ball. We did have a lot of drops last year, but it could have been for continuity, culture, relationship with the quarterback. But at the end of the day, we'll see, because Arian Smith and some of these guys are going to take the field for NFL teams this year. And we're going to see it, because you're not going to last long in the NFL if that's kind of what kind of what your branding is you just physically you just can't catch football. All right, not seeing anything in the chat. I'm actually bringing this up. Let's see, make sure we're not side by side, and see what we got here. If you have not already done so, make sure you go like and follow us. Trying to get YouTube to 1,000 followers as well. So if you haven't done so, you can go check us out, Dogs Down South, on YouTube, and give us a like over there. Would love to converse with you over there. Here we go. Let's see what we got. Here we go, right there. All right. Moving along. Let's take this question down. I'm also learning how to work my questions here. So let's hop in there. So what players, you know what, I'm going to do that in the end. So let's talk a little bit about what's been the key for Kirby in the NIL area. I think for the most part, I think you would look at Kirby and go, I know this was mentioned to Josh Brooks this week. And, he talked about, he's like, is Georgia going to get kind of behind the 8 ball in terms of the GM scenario, the general manager thing kind of popping up? And I'll be honest with you, like, I loved his answer. He mentioned that, I don't think we're to the part where we need a general manager. I think Kirby is the guy that, through his care and his ownership for development and, the ability to him and his team to scout players and make the right choices on the right people that come to Georgia and their development, and there's ability to get people into the NFL, get them drafted. And along with that, not just to stack NFL rosters, winning SEC and national championships. I think we're at that point in, where I think we're good. And I think that's what Josh Brooks thinks. But what has Kirby, what's been the key for Kirby in the NIL era that's kind of brought that? And I had a few things that I just wanted to kind of share. And I think people will agree with this, but the biggest thing I said earlier about the NIL area and Kirby is he's made a lot of players, the Georgia name tag has given the ability to be drafted regardless of, interviews, issues. One of my prime examples is Arian Smith. And I think Arian's for 2 years, he had a problem really just, dropping the football. He had drops, and he had times where he was the fastest guy on the field. But I do feel like if you can't catch the football, it doesn't matter how many miles ahead of a receiver you are. If you can't catch it, can't bring it in, you can't score, then, what are we doing? So, but I think the fact of getting him signed to a pretty lucrative deal with the Jets, I think that says a lot for Kirby. And I think it says a lot for Georgia and what he's done in the NIL era. I think teams pick players from Georgia because they're from Georgia. I think they know what they're going to get. I think they know they're going to get a player that's NFL ready, that I think they can adapt well to the change. I think they can trust the process of leadership development slash weight training program slash, uh, just football, just good football habits. I think sometimes that's missed out on, right? Good football habits. From a sense of like, do you come in? Do you know how to practice? I think Kirby mentioned it this year about some incoming freshmen this year. He was like, we can't do some things because we have some players that are just literally physically out of shape, and we need to do a better job at getting them in shape. And so for me, that says to me right there that there's an aptitude that has to happen for us to be able to practice and play at a high level. And then when they leave Georgia, they're going to have those, uh, I would say, those habits, those aptitudes to take into the NFL teams that they're drafted by. So I think teams are taking opportunity to draft players from Georgia because they trust the process. Um, and I think some of these guys are they're getting taken out of the draft merely because of that. I mean, you see some other players that maybe went later that you went, so you're scratching your head going, I feel like they could have been much uh, later, but because some Georgia players moved up in those spots, it's like, man, are those steals or were those really busts? Who knows? Um, Also, when you look at money, I think from a standpoint of Georgia NIL, I think you make players understand that when you get into the league, your last $1 million could be your NIL deal. Because if you come here and your character doesn't get through, your playing time doesn't get through, your development doesn't happen, you can make all you want to at the college level. But we all know the big dollars come where, these signing bonuses, where they go, the difference in the fourth spot in the draft and the ninth spot in the draft could be tens of millions of dollars. I mean, ask Shedeur Sanders, right? So I think it gives a good stock on what you're going to get when you get a Georgia player. And then last but not least, I mean, if we could just look at Kirby, I mean, I say this all the time, like who wouldn't want to be coached? Better yet, if you had a kid, like who wouldn't want your kid coached by Kirby Smart, right? A great leader of men, a great culture guy. He wants you to feel like when you're in the Georgia family that you're not only going out there and playing your heart out and try to win football games, but you're around coaches who care for you physically and mentally. They care for you to make sure your grades are good. They care that you are an assignment football player and you're doing the right thing when you're supposed to do it, how you're supposed to do it. You're playing at a high level. There's accountability from player to player. You're a teammate and not just a statistical person that comes in and fills a void for Georgia. I think he does a really incredible job of that. And I think his coaches try to emulate what Kirby's doing because why? Kirby's been pretty successful. I think we can all agree that Kirby's been very successful in his time here at Georgia. And it's a combination of all those things. And is he done? No. I think you're only getting started with Kirby. The one thing I am concerned about is when you look at it, how long can some of these college coaches hang around if NIL continues this way? Um, so yeah, just a few hot topic things tonight as we kind of tease this first video. But so much to talk about tonight was just a little bit of a little sample view of what normally goes on during the week. But so we hit some hot topics tonight, and hopefully everybody on TikTok, we're testing this. It's a test run tonight. So excuse me. I wanted to hop on and kind of see what the product was. So thanks for bearing with me. Thanks for being a part. And if you joined tonight, I don't have a chat going. I'm supposed to have a chat going. But yeah, we'll see. We'll get it figured out. It's a test, and hopefully we'll get it done for you. But hey, thank you all for joining. And remember, if you haven't done so, 24 hours later, we are on Apple Podcasts as well as TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Dogs Down South. For myself, Ted Turner, thanks for joining tonight. And as always, go Dogs.